You can say Ingar, it's fine.
And what's your last name?
Dragset? Dragset.
Dragset.
Yeah.
Ingar Dragset.
Yeah.
Got it.
Got it. Yeah, okay.
Ingar Dragset. Okay.
Some people ask if it's my artist name, but it's not.
Ingar Dragset. I know, it sounds...
It's a real name. Very Norwegian sounding.
You ready?
Whenever you are ready.
So we're here with Ingar Dragset. Can you describe the work you're showing here?
Yeah, maybe first I should say that I'm the one half of Elmgreen Ingar Dragset.
Okay.
So I'm representing us both for this interview. Describe the work. Yeah, it's a pretty complex work in a way. It's a show taking part in two different pavilions. We're now standing in front of the Danish pavilion, or the Nordic Pavilion, sorry. We were selected to do these two pavilions both as artists and curators. First, the Norwegians came along as commissioners, invited us to do the Nordic Pavilion. We came down here on a site visit and realized how terribly difficult this pavilion is to show art in. It's already, been sort of inscribed in the history books as a late modernist classic. And it has absolutely amazing features. But we thought, okay, this is more like a home that we would like to live in, rather than, a sort of museum, kunsthalle or gallery. And that led us to the thought of transforming the building into an actual home. Secondly, the Danes came along and said, well, maybe this would be interesting for the Danish pavilion as well. And we suddenly found ourselves in a situation where we had like two neighboring buildings. It's almost like, two houses in an upscale sort of residential area, where you often would find a lot of very active collectors of various things. Neighbors often sort of show off a little bit, or who's got the most beautiful garden, or who's got the biggest car. And we thought, okay, let's follow up on this sort of narrative. From that, we thought about, okay, how does this architecture work? I mean, what are the main architectural features, and who could we imagine living here? In the Nordic Pavilion, it felt obvious to us to follow up on this kind of almost Californian experimental architecture style that you found, for instance, in the collaboration between the Finnish architect Saarinen and the American architect Eames. And we thought, okay, many collectors, and maybe also gay collectors, would live in such a place that has a lot of transparency built into it. It's a little bit more experimental. It's sort of like an optimistic sort of almost, maybe not futurist, but sort of a belief in the future kind of architecture. That's why we also sort of built up these levels inside, and we have receding seating, a bed that's sort of embedded into the floor. There's a bathroom with, transparent walls. There's a space where you can see anything and you can use the different surfaces in different ways. In the Danish pavilion, there are more rooms, they're more like sort of classic in the way that families live. And it gave us the opportunity to work around the fiction around the A family, who seems to be like a sort of broken down family, a family where everyone's sort of separated, husband and wife, and also the children left each to their own.
How did you two come to work together?
Well, that's a long story. I mean, we have worked together for 15 years, but we actually met in a club in Copenhagen called After Dark, and as we sort of had several gin tonics and a few becks, we realized that we lived in the same apartment building in Copenhagen. Copenhagen is a small city, but not that small. And we had to walk home in any case, and that was the beginning of the collaboration.
And how did you go about to choose the artist that you brought in to the project?
Well, we started to think about what do people surround themselves with? You have, of course, the obvious things, like furniture or anything that you need to sort of have in a home to make life comfortable. But people also have a lot of objects, a lot of things, and things that sort of constitute themselves as individuals or show the world who they are, what they're about, what their tastes are. And getting a little bit deeper into that, it's like we went into this aspect of collecting. And we sort of have invented two collections, very different ones in these two pavilions. The one that we find in the Nordic Pavilion is more about queer issues. There are different artists, where most are homosexual artists, working in very different ways. From Henrik Oleson's very minimalist sort of remakes in styrofoam of Solowitz, as a kind of father figure, to Simon Fujiwara's writing desk that's a copy of the pavilion itself and become like a sort of erotic storyboard for a writer, to maybe more explicit works by Wolfgang Tillmans or Tom of Finland. In the Danish, you find various collections in a way, like for instance the fly collection that we have borrowed from a wonderful Swedish writer and biologist, or the Weimar porcelain collection in the kitchen. You have a lot of things that maybe it's not exactly what you think they are when you see them the first time. The stellas on the wall are not from Frank Stella, they are by the legendary artist Stuart Devant, who remade her male colleagues' works as a kind of feminist statement. And yeah.
Do you feel like the public here has understood your work?
I think, I don't feel that people have to understand the work in exactly the way I intended it, or Michael and I intended it. It seems like people are really engaging with the two pavilions, and they also interact with it. They spend time here, and they seem to sort of build upon the narrative that's already here and make stories themselves.
So it's sort of an evolutionary piece in a way.
In a way, yeah, I hope so.